Welcome, nobody. Dope. Okay, let's see. Let's go to this guy first. All right. Last time, I still gotta put the video. But last time I watched Carden Ellis of Ward Radio, and what's this? Last time I watched Carden Ellis of Ward Radio and Greg Madsen of Quick Media talk about the whole fair conference, Aaron Sherinian issue, but just the discussion that happened there and kind of what they're doing. And then after that, Greg posted another video. So this is Greg's fourth video on this topic, and so I'm gonna go do a little reaction to that, see what's going on there. And again, no one's here, so.
Well, I seem to have opened up worms.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into that.
Well, I seem to have opened up a can of worms on the videos I put out on the comms director for the church and the tweets that I have put out. I want to go over a couple of things here that I think are very important. Number one, I want to clarify some things because some people are pulling some things out of context. I think it's important to see what happened and talk about the discussion that has happened afterward, right? And, by the way, I want to talk about a certain phone call also. Now, this episode is brought to you by Cardio Miracle. You guys know that I take this every day. This here is what I take when I go on trips. I travel quite a bit. X post that I put up and cover this a little bit because I want to clarify where I'm coming from. This is what I said. It's disturbing how many bad characters there are on X. I'm going to get to that in a minute. I want my position.
Understatement of the century. There's very little that's good on X other than the live tweets of some instances, but even that's like few and far in between. But
to be clear, I have never criticized the hiring of Aaron. That's important.
He never criticized the hiring, and he never criticized him as a man. He's all Greg criticized was the way that he answered a simple question at the fair conference and how he's answered it or gone about it in the past.
People are mad or they think it's semantics to me or something. No, it's not. I'll go over that. But I've never criticized the hiring of Aaron. I have never advocated for his removal. I have never attacked Aaron's character. And not in any episode that I have done, and I've done several when he was hired to now the family proclamation controversy, have I ever done that. And in fact, in many cases, I've done just the opposite. I continue here with this. The inability to parse out the man and the church on one side and the event and issue of the family proclamation being consistently skirted.
What's up, one concurrent viewer? Hop in the chat. I'm lonely.
On the other is a severe lack of critical thinking. And members of the church have experienced a real sense of stifling the family proclamation. This is real. Don't invalidate the experiences that so many members have had and what is going on right now, right? And
especially members in the state of Utah. It's a whole different beast here coming I've experienced the church outside of the state of Utah after being a member of the church inside the state of Utah my whole life. And boy, is it a different bag of worms compared to literally everywhere else. Everywhere else, everyone's just operating like a normal church. But in Utah, Utah will be, mark my words, Utah will be the epicenter of all evil. This Zion will turn right upside down, and I only think it's going to get worse here in the state of Utah. So brace for impact.
And by the way, that is the issue. It's not really even Aaron. That's the issue. This is just kind of in the middle of everything that's already happening out there, right? And I go on and say there's no need for a scapegoat and there's no need for a witch hunt. That is not how things work. I want to go over these things. And I go on and say there is no need for a scapegoat and no need for a witch hunt. That is the wrong way to approach this. That's not going to do anything. It might make you feel better because you've canceled someone.
Well, and I will say cancel culture is the dumbest thing. No matter which side, even if in this circumstance canceling would be in your favor, it's so dumb. It makes no sense. It's not productive. It's literally just like putting a Band-Aid on an issue. And then it could fester. It might go away, but it could get worse. It's like, let's address the issues. And I think that's all Greg's trying to do is like good faith, have a discussion about the issue and just talk about it. And obviously he just like, I don't know if you could say he wants his thoughts to be validated, but he just wants everyone to like, you have to agree. Like you can't have the conversation if no one's willing to admit there's a problem. And I think in this issue, when it comes to the proclamation, the family proclamation, I do think there are a lot of people who are very like, they're blind, not blind, but I guess they're kind of turning a blind eye, I guess. They're refusing to acknowledge that there's a whole chunk of active church members. Obviously, there's the ex-Mormon community and all those guys and the anti-Mormon community. But there are like active members who are, I wouldn't say conspiring to get anti-robbers yet, but they have an idea that Greg is just trying to address here. He's just trying to say that this is an issue. It's not that this is the end of the world or we need a lynching, we need to hang someone for this issue right now and make an example. He's just saying like, hey, can people acknowledge that there is some part of the church or church membership that doesn't agree with the proclamation, the family proclamation, and just discuss that? And I think this is what I've been saying through all these videos is that everything in the church needs to have transparency. Like that, and we're learning that on levels of government, from other churches, from places of work. You can't have full honesty if there's not full transparency. And I think that's Greg's just trying to create the transparency and create the open dialogue to be able to talk about these things.
But that's not the point. The issue is so much larger than all of this, right? So I want to go back and look at the context coming up to the fair conference, okay? First of all, it's very clear to everyone and a concern to most members of the church, I would say, in the U.S., that identity and family are being broken down, right? The woke madness that is out there, the lunacy of taking away identity, taking away biology, taking away the binary, and breaking down the family is a threat that we have all experienced. Whether we're online or we are at work, wherever it is, these things have been encroaching on us culturally and into our homes and into our media. And it happens inside of the church. And there have been, honestly, other officials, other leaders within the church that have skirted the family proclamation, at least in the past. And so many members are just kind of throwing up their hands and saying, what in the world is going on? Right? That is the environment that we're in. And most importantly, it is personal to individuals where they have lost a kid who's gone off into this woke ideology of breaking down the family, breaking down identity. You know, it's a few years ago, maybe just a couple of years ago, President Nelson in a YSA fireside talked about what I call the identity hierarchy. And he talked about how, you know, there are three different identities that we need to put first. And first is a child of God. The second is a child of the covenant. And the third is a disciple of Christ. And if you put a line under those three, all other identities are below that. And what identitarianism does is it throws everything off by grabbing those other identities that are below that line and putting them up to the top. You know, the LGBTQ stuff. And it's not that that isn't real. It's not that, you know, I'm not a certain, you know, I am a certain race. I am a certain nationality. I have a certain DNA. People have sexual orientation, a gender. These things are all true, but they're all below those things. And when you try and take those things and put them on top, that's where everything goes nuts. And we've seen so much of this. And many people, hundreds, perhaps thousands, that I have received comments and direct emails and contact forms on the website from, have experienced this in church, from the pulpit, testimonies in their Sunday school class, elders quorum, relief society, young men, young women, primary. So people come into this very anxious.
And I think what's important to remember, especially when it comes to that hierarchy that he's talking about, the hierarchy of identity, I think he said it was, what did he say? Child of God, whatever it was. The thing about all of that is that it has to be, those things all put you in a place, something that's bigger than self. Like all those identities, me being a child of God means that I'm part of a heavenly family. Me being a disciple of Christ means that I'm a follower of Christ. It puts you as a person. And I think that's a huge thing to remember within the gospel itself, is that it's not a me gospel. It's not an I gospel. It's about, and that's like, it's like all the healing of yourself has to come from outward expressions of love and charity, right? All this stuff is outward. And the issue with all those other identities, when you focus on who you are in this way, who you are in this way, it's all about satisfaction of self. Your gender identity, your sexual identity, whatever you want to call that, it's all about what makes me feel happy, and it's all about me. It doesn't really matter how it affects everyone else, because it's all about me. Whereas if you focus on those small charitable things of being a child of God, a member of God's heavenly family, you're worried about being a part of something else, something bigger than yourself. And that's what's more important than anything. That's what the family is important, because the family puts you in that chain as well as being a part of something that's bigger than just you. Nothing in life, you're not going to accomplish anything worth, especially in the eternal plan of things, by focusing on just you. You should be just you in the context of your family, in the context of the gospel, in the context of the rest of the world. If everyone in the world would focus more on that, then the world would just by default be a better place. If you're focused on how you are a better person in the world, a better person in your congregation, a better person in your family runs better, your congregation runs better, and the world runs better. It's just like such a simple thing, and that it starts at the family. That's the whole reason why that's the nuclear part of the family. It's literally the nucleus, the center, the nuclear family. And if you could do that, then everything else lines up and everything falls down like, not perfect dominoes, because the world's the world, we're in a fallen earth, but it'll make more sense moving forward.
And worried about things. And I hear about all of this. And by the way, the platform that I have built on this, I did the same thing at BYU. If you're wondering if I've actually had that many people contact me, which is always what somebody brings up, you can see here, this is something I put up a few years ago. You've got creating awareness of BYU professors radicalizing students. Well, that wasn't really happening. That's what I kept getting the pushback on until I put everything out there on.
Dude, people do not believe this at all. I was in the family, home, and social sciences. That was my college. That's the main body that I fit under in the BYU umbrella. I graduated 6 years ago, right? This was just as bad. Well, I don't know how it is now, but it was terrible 6 years ago. And so it's like, obviously, there's no way. I don't think it's gotten better, especially over the COVID and the anti-Trump age. It's like, that's 5,000, almost 6,000 signatures of other people. And those are the people that will say that there's a radicalization of students. Those are those who would verify and signal. There's so many people that are just going along with it. Probably you could take the number times it by 100. That's how many people are going along with that. Maybe not 100. maybe 10. But it's just, the issue stands the same, right? And I feel bad for Greg because I agree 100% with the sentiment. I have 100% been a part of those classrooms. There's a story, right? I was a terrible student. I was so bad at school from day one to they get me the hell out of college. I was a terrible student. High school taught me that all I got to do is turn in some homework assignments, pass a test here and there, and you'll be a-okay. College, not quite like that. You actually got to read and do all that stuff. I was focused more on playing rugby, and so school was whatever. But anyway, long story short, I tried business, I tried teaching. I was told not good enough for either of those things, and so I looked at my list of earned credits, and boom, geography, something pretty interesting. I'll go do that, finish up my degree, get the heck out of here. But what I neglected to do was take the Geography 100 class, the intro to geography that explains, you go through and you listen to all the professors in the different classes, get a rundown of what the major is. Honestly, probably would have helped me make a different decision in my major if I would have done that earlier. But I took that as one of my very last classes. It was like my second to last semester at school. I took Geography 100. I was pretty much done with the whole major. And I just took that last class. And in that class, we read a book. I don't even remember what it's called. I still have it. But in the book, one of the chapters talked about women in the world, essentially. And there's a paragraph that talked about we need more women in politics. We should all make a push. This is at BYU. Make a push to basically a feminist initiative to push more women into politics. And part of this class was we read the chapter the day before class. We had to write a paragraph about the chapter, and then after the paragraph, and then in class we just discussed the chapter. And then one of the professors came in and told us about their emphasis in the major. And I wrote my response. This is me, at this point I could care less what anyone at BYU thought about me. So I wrote my response, finished it, and in this class I was probably the oldest or like high seniority in class. I was one of the only like seniors taking this class, and so I always sat in the front because I'm like, they're not gonna call on me. I like whatever, it's just easier. So I sat front center this whole class, and for some reason they called on me in this specific chapter. And they said, what are your thoughts on the chapter? And all I said was, it focused a lot about women in politics. I personally believe that it shouldn't matter what's between your legs. I said, why don't we just hire the best person for the job? Why don't we just pick the best person for the job, regardless of their outward appearance, their skin color, whatever it is, their upbringing? Let's just pick the person who has the best answers to our problems. Needless to say, that was like chapter 3, so it was like class 3. I was never called on again in that class. Everyone went silent. No one else had anything to say. They just moved on to the next chapter, and that was it. That was my last. That was my exit to BYU. Was that you stand up against something that one of the textbooks says, and yeah, you're effectively no longer part of the class. Still got the credit. Still graduated. But that was like the experience in the family home and social sciences. Another story, there's this I had professors getting in trouble for calling the building that our major was housed in was the Spencer W. Kimball Towers. Now, for generations at that school, everyone has called that Swicket. Swicket. That's what everyone. Hey, I got a class. I got to run to the Swicket. That's what they call it. Is the letters spelled out. And towards the end of my time at BYU, professors started getting in trouble and were like being threatened with punishment if they continued to call it the Swicket, because there were those in the community that believed that it should be called by its proper name, the Spencer W. Kimball Tower, because it's disrespectful to the family if you don't. It's like, come on. Like, why? Like, who cares? I don't care if those guys are giving all the money in the world to the school. Like, that's such a pompous thing to say. It's such a dumb thing to do. And I get that that's why now, if you go to BYU now, every new building that's created, they don't call it like they used to. There's not, we have like the Eyring Science Center, the Joseph Smith JFSB, Joseph Fielding Smith Building. You have the Jesse R. Knight. They're all named after prophets or apostles. They don't do that anymore. They just call it the Music Building, the Science Building, the Health Sciences. Like they don't. That's just what they do. Because I guess for that reason, because they don't want to be called out by someone saying that you're disrespecting the name of this person or that you're worshiping this person. It's like, give me a break. It's just a memorial, dude. Just relax. But all that to say that this is 100% happening at BYU, or at least it was in 2019. I haven't been around it. But if I was a betting man, I'd be putting it all on black. I'd just be like, right there is happening. I'd drop my whole life savings that this is still happening, especially in the more liberal arts colleges like I was a part of.
Video and showed everybody actually what was happening with certain professors. It's not like it was pervasive everywhere, but there were a number of different professors that were doing some crazy lunacy in their teaching at BYU.
Crazy. And I've actually, since I've been gone, I've heard stories. I've heard stories of professors saying, actually, that's just more of a guideline. That's not like the family is this still very much up for interpretation. It's very much not up for interpretation.
So you can see here 5,758 right now. Pretty much over 5,000 of those came within, the first few months that I had put this up. And it says down here, sign the petition. This is not a petition for activism. Look at the title again, creating awareness. I'm not trying to change anything. I'm trying to make people aware. They can make a change if they want. And that's important to understand because that's not what I'm doing with.
Sorry, Greg, didn't mean to block your face out.
This situation with the comms director. I'm not out there trying to be an activist with the church.
His title literally said just what? Awareness. He's not saying like, oh, we should ban all these people. He's just saying, hey, we should know and watch out for things that are being taught where they're probably not supposed to be taught.
Many of you have already, put that on me. Like I'm an activist and I want to do something. No, it's not. Why can't you parse that out? I've already been through this. I know exactly what I did with BYU. And by the way, with that petition, there were roughly 1,000 stories of individuals, students and parents giving stories about what had happened at BYU. And what's going on with this is no different. This is prior to the Q&A with Aaron Sherinian. I'm talking about what, the people that have contacted me about the family proclamation issues. And then you have those that go as far as to say, well, using the phrase that some people often like to throw out there, well, you're studying the ark, Greg. Stop studying the ark. I am not studying the ark. I'm not anywhere near the ark. Imagine the children of Israel out in the wilderness. That's where this phrase comes from. I am way out on the outskirts, far away from the ark, out in the wilderness. I see unsheathed swords, ideologically speaking, in the hands of a number of enemies and those that are unwittingly helping them coming in toward the camp.
Bro, that's a fire analogy. Hey, I'm going to go stand on the out fringes of the ark with you, Greg. I'll be there with you. And
I'm just yelling, hey, look what's coming here. Look what's after us.
Hey, but I'll pick up a sword, though. I'm going to pick them up. That's something my mother hates hearing from me is that, sometimes God needs soldiers. And guess what? I'll be there. I volunteer as tribute.
That's all I'm doing. I have zero responsibility with those types of things in the church. I've got a calling. That is all that I...
Because that's the other thing is it's like you have these wolves in sheep's clothing. Yes, that's fine. That's whatever. It's just about standing on the tower and saying he's not crying wolf here. He's crying sheep in wolf's clothing. He's trying to just tell us that there's stuff happening before you send your kids to BYU. Have them prepare. It's just like before you send your kids to public school. Like you have to have them in good faith. And again, this is something I don't have a ton of experience with because I grew up in Utah, went to high school in Lehigh, Utah. I was like one of maybe the 2%, 1% minority. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm American, but 1% of the minority students there. Everyone was in seminary. Everyone was doing the thing, right? So very different from other places. But if you live somewhere, you're going to say, hey, kids, you might come across this at school. Just know that there's two sides to every story. You're not going to tell them, hey, you should think this way, you should think that way all the time. But you'll give them a heads up. You'll say, this is a possibility. And that's all he's trying to do is say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's have this. Let's air out our feelings on this.
I do in my ward or stake. And yes, I can parse that out. I can separate that. And that's the way it should be approached. Now, I want to address the question. So now that we've set this kind of environment up, first of all, so Aaron is invited to the fair conference. Right now, there's already the background with Aaron. There were some issues when he was hired a year and a half ago where people had some issues with him, including me. Now, I can do that and be aware and not talk about the brethren hiring him or anything else that has to do with the church. I'm just talking about what is. What is? Do I put my head in the sand? Do you put your head in the sand? Or are you aware of what is? Neither you nor I have a responsibility in who is hired in Salt Lake. And I have a pretty firm boundary on not crossing a line that goes into activism with the church. And many of you are going to say, well, you're bringing it up is just activism. No, it's not. No, it's not. I'm not calling.
Let's see real quick. Activism. Dude, I'm an atrocious speller. The policy action of vigorous campaigning to bring about. Okay, so the definition of activism is the policy or action of using vigorous campaigning. Those are underlined words. Vigorous campaigning to bring about political or social change. I would not say that Greg is vigorously campaigning for anyone. Like he has that he has a petition, but the petition is just to say, hey, people, it's awareness. This is happening. Be careful, this is happening. He's not saying this is happening and we need to A, B, C, D, like do this, and this. But essentially what he's trying to say is activism is you're picketing, you're saying we want this change, we need this change. Greg's not even saying we need to change. Greg's just saying we need to be aware. So
Calling for anything.
I agree with that.
And then others of you say, well, you should be calling for something. You should be going after the brethren. You should be going after the church.
See, and again, I don't think I had this discussion. I don't know. It would be cool if someone, again, transparency, if someone explained the process of this man being hired. Obviously, it's the church, so at some point it had to touch the brethren. But it's like, to what circumstance do they know? Does like just one of them have to vouch for this guy and everyone says, okay, cool. Like, we don't know how this happens. And so it's like, Greg's again not saying, hey, we need to impeach somebody, but he is saying like, hey, this is happening. This guy may not be, and it's not even, he didn't call out the credibility or the character of Aaron Sherinian. He's just saying, hey, we should be allowed to question it. We should be allowed to say, is that right? Is that okay? And I think a lot of people are saying you either really should or you really shouldn't. He's just saying we should be able to question.
Look, that's not my job, and it's not yours. And I want you to remember something. When you go after the head of a body, you cut the head off of a body, and then the whole body falls apart. Just remember that. You cut the head off of the body, the whole body dies. You don't do that. And for me, it's just, I did this the same way with BYU. Where rarely did I ever bring up the name of a professor and looking for a scapegoat or a firing. There was only one time I brought up the name of a professor.
Bro, not gonna lie, you have to have some pretty egregious stuff happen to be very specific on a name. Like, you gotta, and that's why it's kind of egregious, not egregious. But the only reason he's calling out Aaron Sherinian is because that's the public-facing head. Like, that's the guy. There's really no one else to point out in that situation. But it's like, hey, yo, I'm not going to go put one of my professors on blast mode like that. But like, I'll say, hey, there were some issues.
Professor, and it was because I was defending myself. Because I'm not trying to create a scapegoat. I'm not trying to create a witch hunt. So there is a background coming into the conference that already exists. What happened at the conference does not happen in a vacuum. There is an environment within the church in the U.S. and probably Canada where you've got these things happening a lot. And if you are not sure, or you've never heard of this, or you don't know, well, you're the rare one. So between the environment within the members of the church and what they're concerned about, and they're valid in being concerned about this, and the background with Aaron, that brings us to this point where this Q&A happens with the presentation at the fair conference. Now here's the question. I will say up front, for complete transparency, I thought it was a little more direct, and I'm going to show why I don't think that really matters. But I thought the question was a little bit more direct when I heard it. I was there, which was, do you support the family proclamation? Right? But I want to explain the question here a little bit. Here it is. I'm going to quote it. And this is the transcript that Matthew Watkins had put together before the video was taken down, okay? Here's the question, quote, when you first came on board, this is the host to Aaron Sherinian, when you first came on board the church, there was a lot of online flack, should we say. And people even, and then he brings this up, and he says even the word directly, right? He says, I've gotten a few questions here, which were the most amount of questions on a single point in the conference, right? He says, I've gotten a few questions here asking directly whether or not you support the family proclamation. Asking directly whether or not you support the family proclamation. So those were submitted from the attendees, the guests at the conference. And then he finishes it off and says, and how was that for you when you first came on board? Has it improved, and how do you deal with that? So a lot of people are talking about the question in a way that is, well, that wasn't the question about the family proclamation, right? It was more about the flack you took when you were hired. Well, again, the flack that he took, and I was a part of that, the flack that he took when he was hired was about the exact same thing. There's no difference here, right? The whole thing is couched in the flack when you're hired and in the family proclamation.
So
okay. Now I want a couple more points about some of the.
So this guy can't be thinking that his answer. He, as a public affairs official, you should know that your answer, the question's not coming in a vacuum. Your answer probably shouldn't come in a vacuum. Your answer should come based on the context of what everyone in the room knows, because everyone that was at fair conference knows the background there, this background that Greg's describing. So it's like you should have, even if it's a canned political answer, you should have a canned political answer that satisfies the question from the current audience.
Aftermath here that has happened from this, before I go further on this. First of all, Scott Gordon, who is the head of FAIR, has been criticized for the way he handled this or the way that he asked the questions. That is ridiculous. This is not an investigative journalist. He is not trying to grill the guests in the Q&A sessions. He's grateful that Aaron and all the other speakers are there. It's just a friendly little...
Bro, you wonder why people don't want to put on events and stuff? Because one, it's a headache to get going. It's a headache at the time. And it's a freaking headache after because everyone's going to criticize what you do. Right? People just got to chill. There's this thing called grace. Give them some grace, dude.
Q&A for the audience afterward. So those that are saying, well, he should have done this or this is ridiculous. Come on.
Monday morning quarterbacks, bro. That's the majority of the internet. Everybody's a Monday morning quarterback. But seriously though, like I'll say stuff, I'll just be talking out my butt and whatever. But like, dude, some people like firmly believe that they know they got the answer. They got the answer for why Lamar Jackson threw an interception last night. Like, bro, just chill though. You don't know everything. What's that called? What's that thing when expert. What's this called? The Dunning-Kruger effect, right? There's so much Dunning-Kruger in the world today.
And secondly, FAIR has taken some flack, which I really don't understand because of this whole Q&A issue.
You should understand. Because you're a personality on the internet, you should know that People be throwing shade because they're bored on a Tuesday afternoon during their lunch hour.
Let me tell you something. FAIR is, in my opinion, by far the best, call it a third-party organization, an NCO, right, a non-church organization, that there is out there. They do an amazing job. And quite frankly, they need even more support. And I'm going to ask right now, I gave a donation to them. I'm going to ask anybody here that would help with them to give a donation to FAIR. I'm going to put the link for the donation in the description box on YouTube. And it can be a small donation or larger, whatever it is, please go and help out. They are phenomenal. And when given an opportunity, one would hope that the answer is very much in the affirmative. Anyway, right? I don't want to linger on this. And I'll get to a little bit more of this later on. But those that have those concerns about the family proclamation, there wasn't to me, that would have been just so great, right, to hear that. And I think that if Aaron had the chance to go back, I think even if he wasn't as direct even with it, volumes to me about his character, and it should speak band on so many issues. And we can't do that anymore. We live in the internet age. You can't do that anymore. He continues and says, speaking of myself, he's not sowing seeds of doubt, and he's certainly not criticizing the brethren. The point he's making is that we ought to be alarmed at the level of rejection around it and a movement, and then you eventually want a scapegoat. And so you make a sacrifice. That is human nature. And some of it is true to some degree. I mean, in the premortal world, we wanted to bond ourselves together, and we do bind ourselves together on the idea that Jesus Christ is going to sacrifice himself, right? But there is good sacrifice and there is bad sacrifice. And focusing the overall idea on this, and I know that this is the most recent event, but it won't be the last, is not the real issue. The issue is, how is the family proclamation handled? Are people avoiding it at times? What's happening in your ward, in your stake? And how does that compare to the broader culture where you live? I go more along the lines with this guy on Facebook who put up this post. He says, I disagree that a critique of Sherinian is a critique of the brethren. Correct. My concern about Sherinian's...
I think that goes back to the whole transparency thing. Like, you don't know exactly who is involved in that decision. You really don't. Like, you have to assume that because they're the heads of the church, they touched it at some point. But I mean, like, are they gonna 100% know, or did they trust this? Is like, you don't blame the CEO for how they hired some middle manager somewhere. That's essentially kind of what you're doing. There's some middle manager in the marketing department over there. It's like, what are you talking about?
Willingness to affirm the truths of the family proclamation has to do with Sherinian alone. I don't think he should be fired, and I don't necessarily doubt that he was the right choice. That is exactly my thoughts. This is in response to
his plot twist. He's just reading his own comment.
Something I had put out there. He goes on to say a few more things here, and I'm cherry picking on this, but I'm not going to talk about the whole thing. It's pretty long. He says a lot of LDS are concerned about this. That's valid. It's valid, right? And there's some that have said, well, you should be taking this. Someone made a video on this. I haven't seen it, but I've heard a lot about it. That you should be taking this through the proper church channels, right? Here's his point on that. I'm not sure that even applies to a mere church employee. He then says, point two, this particular example is a public figure and we're commenting on his public actions. It's what is. This leads me to believe that public critique is warranted. And then he says, in response to this thread, he says, you're right to be concerned about division among the saints. And I appreciate this. He says, but I think we both know that Greg Mattson's style is absolutely not divisive. And some people are going to throw up their hands and say, come on. But I think most people that follow what I do would say the same thing. I believe that because that's the feedback that I get and because that is what I try to do. I don't try to be divisive, but I understand that conflict comes up when you bring something up. And in our culture, we're very used to just putting our head in the sand on so many issues. And we can't do that anymore. We live in the internet age. You can't do that anymore. He continues and says, speaking of myself, he's not sowing seeds of doubt, and he's certainly not criticizing the brethren. The point he's making is that we ought to be alarmed at the level of rejection we find from outside of the church and inside the church regarding one's approach to the family proclamation. I really appreciate this guy saying this and articulating it this way. It's exactly the way I feel and exactly what I'm trying to do. Now, about the phone call. This is also important.
Ooh.
In fact, this is the most important thing I'm saying here. I reached out to Aaron a couple of days ago. He responded fairly quickly, which I wasn't sure he would do. And I really appreciate it. It's a very gracious move for him, regardless of what you think of his position or what he avoided or didn't avoid or whatever else. Because I had already put out what I did on X. I had put out what I did on YouTube. And he was willing to call me back. And first of all, that spoke volumes to me about his character, and it should speak volumes to you about his character. We talked about several things, including cultural pressures, the things that are changing in the world. We talked about many things, including the breakdown of the family. We talked about certain stats that affected the membership of the church that I had brought up to him. He repeated his great support for the brethren and his dedication to the church. And the conversation was very amiable. I can't discuss everything that we discussed, but I can tell you that he's a good man. He is a good man. In terms of the family proclamation, what I would look at from here on out is what has he done with the church, with his calling in regards to the family proclamation, and what is he going to do for the remainder of his time there? As the saying goes, action speaks louder than words. That's what I would focus on. Otherwise, I think we need to move on from Aaron and continue to support and advocate for the family proclamation. Lastly, I want to say this, and I know that a lot of people don't agree with me on this. We're a very polite people, and I'm not going
Not on the internet, bro. On the internet, those comment sections be getting crazy when it comes to some of these Mormons out here.
to say I'm not polite, but I've usually been willing to say things that are not usually very comfortable. But that's who I am, and that's the way I've always conducted business. I've had a few different small companies and dealt with everyone from other small companies and entrepreneurs to Fortune 500 CEOs. And I want to look at what is. That's how I find truth. What is? Show me what is. And this discussion has to be had. What are we doing about family? What is happening within the church on the ground level? How do we, as members of the church, with the principles of the gospel, with the principles of the family proclamation, hold off the world and not let this identitarianism lunacy that is a breakdown of gender, it's a breakdown of identity.
Pretty good. Like I said, I like Greg. I agree with Greg wholeheartedly in this situation. Go follow Quick Media, Quick Show, YouTube. We'll throw them in the description. It's unfortunate. It sounds like he's going through it. It sounds like he's been dragged more or less. And I would never question his character. He's been doing nothing but the right, and it's like he said, it speaks volumes for these people to, these people, for Aaron Shrinian to call back and to be somewhat, like, to at least have the conversation. Hopefully we hear more from him on the matter, but who knows at this point, So, there's that one. That's the last of Greg on the issue. But apparently, I was told that there's another video that addresses a lot of this same topic. This is my other favorite guy. I've got this guy, probably the smartest guy in Mormon social media. This guy, Jacob Hansen, is a legend, bro. He can break it down. He finds clips. He just cuts to the quick with a lot of these issues. And apparently this was a huge discussion. This is a 2-hour discussion. I kind of don't want to hit the whole thing, but we'll dip in here and see what they got to say.
I mean, whether or not.
Well, what one? I'm genuinely this whole time. My number one thing that I had in all of this, when you accused me of being an anti-church activist, is I'm sitting there going, "What did I say?"
Well,
You've provided no specifics. This is
And
one
I'm
of the things
not
that's
going
happened
to.
in this. You're
Well,
right.
no,
You
in
said you're
ter-
not
in-
going to? Jim Bennett is an online Latter-day
guy.
Saint commentator who has some
Oh, he's this is. I hope this is the video I was told to watch, but we'll see. This is his most recent. It's supposed to relate somewhat to the last video from Greg.
very strong opinions about me.
I don't think anybody is more destructive to people's testimonies than people like you.
I have to be honest.
Say, okay, boomer. That's what that looks like. That looks like a okay, boomer guy. I'm gonna speed this up.
Almost didn't release the interview
Oh no, that's gonna be crazy.
you're about to watch. And it's not because I'm ashamed of anything I said. And actually, Jim remained pretty calm throughout our interview. Still, as you will see in the video, he publicly makes allegation after allegation against me, my character, my intentions, and every time I asked for something specific I did wrong, nothing was offered. Having someone publicly accuse you of things for 2 hours without any specific examples to back what they are saying is incredibly frustrating. However, I also know that many in the church are becoming increasingly alarmed at just how brazenly people like Jim are when they seem to reject the firm declarations of our leaders.
There is no justification to redefine.
There's the goat right here, the man himself when it comes to the proclamation. This is the guy.
What marriage is. Such is not our right, and those who try
He was the prophet when he said this and posted the proclamation to the family. So he was the mouthpiece for the Lord, in my belief.
will find themselves answerable to God.
Fine.
Trust me.
Have they been clear, Jim, about the definition of marriage being a union between a man and a woman?
Up until the point where they endorsed a legislation that made gay marriage legal in all 50 states.
And what did they?
But that's like the same. I don't even know what he's gonna say right now. But that's the same as like Brigham Young and the whole polygamy thing. Like that's literally, you have to be run by the laws of the land, and if it's gonna keep you in the good graces in the eye of the American public, then sometimes you gotta do that. But that doesn't change the doctrine. A political move doesn't change the gospel doctrine.
Say about our doctrine in relation to that
Doesn't
legal
matter.
decision?
That's the thing. I mean, you're sitting here trying to say they have this immutable position, but
So you think that they?
The doctrine of the Lord.
Dude, Jacob Hansen's drops. He drops these video. Bling. He probably just has a full bag of these things. He's just ready to splat.
Regarding marriage and
Again, another prophet.
morality cannot be changed.
Cannot.
We cannot change his doctrine. It is not ours to change.
Dude, whenever the brethren come out with these topics or this stance on a topic like this, and not all of them do it, only a very few number of them. I think there are only a couple that are allowed right now to come out and be like, "This is the one." Like, this is the one.
I do know the church will continue to change as it has changed dramatically and drastically over a relatively short period of time in terms of what we teach and what we believe about LGBTQ people and their status.
The reality is that publicly implying the doctrine of marriage might change is to reject the
Bro, this guy feels attacked. He did a full 2 hours on this thing. That's crazy.
explicit and public declarations of our leaders and scriptures. Implying the doctrine of marriage can change is to imply that our current doctrine of marriage is not true. Because if it was true, it wouldn't need to change. It's a point that I try to make clear in this conversation. And so I decided to post this conversation regardless of the attacks on me, because I think that is a point worth making.
Ding, ding, ding. It's the rematch, ladies and
I'm
gentlemen.
confused. What? So is this? Oh, the rematch. This is the second discussion between the two.
Between Jacob Hansen and Jim Bennett. These are two.
Bro, you already know. He said this guy's a content creator or a spokesperson, whatever. This guy's just using his iPhone. Bro, step your game up like Jacob.
Very good friends.
with the 4K and the lighting.
Friends of mine, and they've asked me to facilitate a conversation today.
Oh, the boomer eye roll and wipe the glasses was wild.
About issues that are happening in the church. Of course, a couple weeks ago we had the situation at Fair Mormon, where Aaron Sherarian refused to say that the family proclamation is part of the canon or whatever. But this is a very sensitive topic, and of course many of you know that I myself am a gay man who has, by the way, is not a progressive, nor has advocated for the church to change its stance on marriage. I think people sometimes try to shoehorn me into these things.
And that's what's crazy is, because he says this, because he think that it has to be mutually exclusive. Oh, there's someone who's gay in my family, so I have to not believe in the doctrine I believe in. Two things can be true at the same time. I can still love that person who is not following the gospel principle, or does not agree with the gospel principle, or maybe agrees with it and is following it, but is living a life that is hard in that certain aspect. I won't ever be able to fully empathize because I don't truly understand what they're going through. But at the same time, it's I can love them and I can love the gospel of Jesus Christ and the doctrines taught there. Those two things can be true at the same time.
But I try to be neutral on these issues as well. I also feel that it's really important that we have, during these very difficult times in which we're having culture wars in our country, it's a very divided society that we live in, and we're trying to model how can we have civil conversations where we have disagreements. Jim Bennett reached out to me and asked to see if we could facilitate this conversation. And so this morning, it's Saturday, August the 16th.
Okay, so Boomer Jim is the home team, and they
at 10:11 a.m.
he set it up, so
Eastern time. We all got up early, extra early, so we could have this conversation. Now I'm going to hand it off to Jacob Hansen, and then we'll have
and he elects to play defense first.
Jim do an opening statement.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for doing this, Steve. And I am the one who is the earliest out of the group. So if I don't look like I'm all fully woken up, it's because it's a little earlier where I am. But no, thank you very much. I actually am very happy to talk with Jim again and have this conversation. Ultimately, I think there are very important issues here that are dividing members of the church. And I think that we should try our best to explore those, understand one another's positions, and really kind of get deeper into it. And so I guess one of the things that sparked my interest in having this conversation was something that Jim had said online about me, that I've been called a lot of things before by a lot of different people. Usually it's that I'm a shill apologist for the church. Jim was on Twitter and accused me of being a anti-church activist. And
bro, I don't think I'm ever gonna get on Twitter. I'm never gonna be this active on Twitter. Being this active on Twitter is crazy.
So I haven't had that one before, and so I guess kind of to start it off, I wanted to understand Jim maybe kind of.
This guy being an anti-church activist is wild, because this guy, I think at this point, I think he might have downloaded every conference talk that has ever been done, into his brain, not just on his computer, into his brain. This guy Jacob Hansen is extremely smart. I will default to him on most doctrinal knowledge questions. So that's crazy that this guy would come out and say he is a anti-church activist.
What you meant by that, or maybe what specifically I've done that you think merits me being called publicly a anti-church activist?
Sure. Well, that is my sole purpose for being here today. It's the reason I reached out to Stephen Peinecker. Steve, you say the ding, ding, ding at the beginning. I'm really not interested in rough and tumble here. Our previous conversation lives in infamy to a large degree. That really isn't my purpose here. My purpose here is to discuss, Jacob, exactly what you're talking about, because what I'm seeing, I I felt when Aaron Sherinian was first hired, and I feel now as he's come under attack again.
What's up, viewer? Say something in the chat so I know you're not a fake number.
Responsibility to defend a good man that I know well. I did not get to know
Just watching some church stuff.
Aaron Sherinian as communications director. I got to know Aaron Sherinian when he was the bishop in my father's ward when my father was dying. And my father suffered a stroke 3 weeks before he passed. He had been battling pancreatic cancer, but it was the stroke that ended up taking his life. And all of his 6 children rallied around his bedside for those last 3 weeks. I was there the entire time. And
Jesus, welcome to the chat. Just watching some church drama, some outer church drama videos.
And so was Aaron Sherinian. Aaron Sherinian was there every day. If not Aaron, then Emily Sherinian, his wife. He would bring us tacos. He would come and just sit with us. He would come and just talk to us. The night my father passed away, he was the first person at the door. And he sat there and was there with us. And
So it looks like this guy's going to be making an appeal to the character of Aaron Sherinian, which none of these guys, Jacob Hansen, Greg Mattson, none of these guys have said anything about Aaron Sherinian's character. They've actually said they all think he's a great guy. They just have a question about the family proclamation that is refusing to be answered.
crying with us. So I feel just tremendous affection for this man and recognize
So it sounds like he's more here to play defense for the guy and not what was said.
his role as a disciple of Christ. He was the bishop in the ward, but he was every bit as accessible or as down to earth as any other member of the ward. And so when he was initially hired, and one of the other things that I knew, my father and Aaron Sherinian were having conversations professionally. Aaron Sherinian, I don't think there's any argument about this, is one of the most qualified communications professionals in the world. And I remember having conversations with my father about the fact that the church was pursuing him for this role for many years, and that Aaron had turned it down for a variety of reasons. And I think eventually decided that he sort of felt a responsibility, an obligation. Obligation is kind of a strong word.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do that later. That's 2 hours. That's crazy. I'll come back to that one later, though. JJ. Welcome. You're the only person who's chatted so far. There was another video I wanted to watch, though. Let's see if I can find it. Ex-Mormon. Oh, gosh. I'll get in trouble if I react to that one. What should I watch, JJ? You got something I should watch? Let's see, let me find this guy. Keystone. Let's do this. I'm gonna fire up this guy's video.
This is Wix Studio.
What the?
I recently found this post.
Alright, we're gonna do this one. Because I like this guy. His videos are extremely entertaining. Oh, one of the Utah pastors are good. Have you seen this guy before? This guy has, I love this guy's videos. He does like facts and different things like that. So I'll start with this one while you find that guy.
I recently found this post on Reddit claiming that early Latter-day Saint missionary work in Scandinavia was really just a thinly veiled sex trafficking operation bent on funneling young women into the
Frank, crazy B-roll.
Utah plural marriage machine. Here's the deal. One of my biggest pet peeves is when critics take a subject that is really worth talking about. Like,
Hey, this is Keystone, by the way. The title is Keystone's the name of his channel, right? Let me see real quick. Yeah, Keystone. I forget his name freaking every time he's on here. David Snell, mother. His name is David Snell. This guy, his name Keystone is the name of his channel. David Snell is his real name.
Like polygamy, and then dilute it by piling on other clearly sensationalized claims. Like,
oh, I do know the Hello Saints guy. He says, "Hello Saints." That's how he starts all his videos. But actually, I gotta react to some of his stuff.
this one. So in this video, I want to dive in and learn what I can about this claim, but then I want to cut through the sensational and explore some more practical questions. How many women in Utah actually practiced polygamy? What did a polygamous proposal look like? And if things went south, what did divorce look like? First things first, were missionaries trafficking young Scandinavian girls? Well, the first red flag is that there is no source.
Bro, not gonna lie, when they says they're trafficking Scandinavian girls, this sounds like an article written by a Scandinavian guy who's jealous that the Mormons are coming in and wooing all the women over there.
Attached to this meme, and the Reddit user is clearly hostile to the church. Nonetheless, if missionaries were targeting and trafficking Scandinavian women to Utah, I figured it should be reflected in Scandinavian immigration statistics from the 1800s, if I could find that information somewhere to begin with. The hunt was on, and it actually wasn't long before I struck gold. I learned that out of over 10,000 Scandinavian converts who emigrated between 1853 and 1882, 74% did so in family groups. About 15% were marriageable women and 12% were marriageable men, and many of these eligible individuals naturally ended up marrying each other. All prevalent notions to the contrary.
Bro, that's crazy that he did the amount of research. Dude, props to you, David Snow. Your research is superb.
These Scandinavian converts, by and large, embraced Mormonism in families. Lurid stories of abduction to supply women for Utah's supposed harems had their germ in occasional runaways and desertions, but the statistics and the accounts of the converts themselves provide a convincing, not to say startling, corrective of folklore. This Reddit post is really just a modernized version of the sensationalized 1800s anti-Mormon.
Bro, was that a Brigham Young political cartoon? That was crazy. Look at this thing. Salt Lake City. Oh, and that's in Salt Lake. The Mormon octopus enslaving the women of Utah. That's a wild picture. That's crazy.
Sensationalized 1800s anti-Mormon political.
Let's see. Polygamy, bigamy, adultery, offenses. Mormonism. Oh, dang. They got that Mountain Meadow on there. I didn't realize. I guess when the church was the politics, and like, people like to think that now, but back in the day, dude, when Utah was not yet Utah, was the state of Deseret, the church there was no separation between church and state, and that was a big problem why the church Utah had such a hard time becoming a state. Also, this is from the subreddit ex-Mormon, so obviously this was going to be terrible.
Cartoons that we all know and love. But let's...
Wait, what was that last one?
1800s anti-Mormon political cartoons that we all know.
Brigham Young's investment.
And love. But let's put the sensational aside for a moment and talk about reality for a bit. In reality, how many women actually even practiced polygamy in Utah?
Not very many.
Well, ChatGPT...
I think this is just like the issue of like slavery in history, where the way we talk about slavery in American history, they make it sound like 90% of people in America own slaves. And that's just not true. It was a very small minority of people own slaves. Yes, they own a lot of slaves. Yes, slavery was bad. Yes, it was something that needed to go away. But like the sensationalization, like he said here, of slavery, it's just like everyone who speaks of Mormon history makes it sound like up until like last year, most members of the church were polygamists. Not true. It's just not true. Like there were the prominent members did practice polygamy for a time, but it was not like every single dude in the church was out there courting 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 wives. That's crazy.
GPT gave me a quote from this book that supposedly answered this question, but I trust ChatGPT about as far as I can throw it. So I went to the library, found the book, came home, and lo and behold, ChatGPT had indeed lied to my face.
Every time. Never count on ChatGPT for information, dude.
Think I'm gonna have a heart attack and die from that surprise.
It turns out that this data is not particularly easy to find either. My search continued until I found this article, which tried to take a demographic snapshot of polygamy in 3 different wards
What's the occupation?
in Salt Lake City at its absolute height, that's a key phrase there, in 1860. Researchers found that 44% of women were married polygamously, 36% monogamously, and 20% were unmarried. So, while polygamy was certainly accepted and popular, even at its height, there were still plenty of men and women who chose monogamy. As a side note, in their study, polygamy was actually least common in the ward composed of 95% immigrants. But if a man wanted to take on another wife, what did that process actually look like? I'll admit, in the past, I've imagined plural marriage as if it was sort of a free-for-all, with men looking to almost collect women.
Man, this is I don't know what he's going to say. He's obviously done the research. I haven't really done the research. But from what I believe is that it was very few, like it was almost like a calling in a lot of situations, where it's like, hey, brother so-and-so, you need to do this, this, and this. And that's why it's viewed as such a bad thing, is because it was mostly the leadership of the church that was involved in polygamy. It wasn't every Joe, Hiram, John, and Nephi out there that was involved in polygamy. It's just not the truth.
Women like Pokemon.
No! Already taken by someone who was on time.
But the reality was different. My search for answers took me from the internet to this book, which led me to a stash of old books in my kid's closet, where I found this book, which I inherited from my grandpa probably 20 years ago and have finally had the opportunity to use. Apostle Orson Pratt taught in 1853, before any man
also his graphics,
takes the
give whoever does your graphics
least step towards getting another.
JJ might have something to say about the overall design, but I know the technical part of putting the actual graphic into motion.
Other wife, it is his duty to consult the feelings of the wife which he already has.
Ooh, see? This would rule me out of polygamy, because my wife said it's a no-go. Good thing, too, because I don't want another wife.
Obtain her consent.
And about that noise.
Now, while this was the expectation and the standard, it didn't always pan out this way. And if the wife didn't have a good reason to tell her husband no, good reason is a subjective term there, then he could still move forward with the plural marriage. Of course, that probably wouldn't be the best foundation for a happy home, and we'll circle back around to this when we talk about divorce. But this was only the first step. Plural marriage, like a monogamous sealing in the temple today, was considered to be a priesthood ordinance. Pratt noted that no man in Utah who already has a wife has any right to make any propositions of marriage to another lady until he has consulted the president over the whole church. If Brigham Young said no,
which that actually does make it like a little bit suspect, is when only one, like I can see the potential nefarious intentions behind only one man being able to give the go no go on the polygamy, because it's like, especially if you end up chasing it back and it's like a bunch of the homies were getting second, third wives, but none of the other guys were. So I get that chain of command, there's a ladder, but at the same time I can see where there is room for doubt.
That was the end of it, and he did sometimes say no. Peter Schertz is one rather brutal example of that. Peter liked to live in the more remote regions of southern Utah and wasn't much of a people person. In response to his petition to take on another wife, Brigham Young responded,
"Dear brother, until you are willing to live where a family can be safe and have a reasonable opportunity for social enjoyment and
I never thought about that, dude. Can you imagine living in the middle of southern Utah, like central southern Utah, all by yourself? That would be like, you got hostile natives, you got other settlers roaming through there ready to kill anybody they come across, you got animals, bro. That'd be bro, I do not envy anyone. I'm extremely grateful that they paved the way for us to be here today, but man, I hate driving down I-15, let alone friggin' walking all the way down I-15 and just pitching a tent wherever, bro. That's a crazy life to think about back then.
I am of the opinion that it will be altogether best for you to continue to lead the life of a hermit, For I know of no woman worth a groat who would be willing to agree with your wild, unsocial ways for any length of time.
Dang, Brigham Young was cold. That was a chastisement of this guy. He's just trying to live a free life, dude. Leave the guy alone. Don't let him have a second wife. But hey, it's not that bad.
Your brother in the gospel, Brigham Young.
Of course, Brigham Young wasn't familiar with everyone in Utah, so many men and women would have their bishop or stake president send in a letter of recommendation. If the president approved of the union, the man would then need to get the permission of the prospective fiancé's parents. Pratt wrote that if their consent cannot be obtained, this also ends the matter. If they said yes, then the man could finally approach the woman. If she said no, that was also the end of it.
Dang, so this is like there's no, damn, this is actually something I didn't know, was that there was 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 layers of consent that need to be approved before you can take a second wife. Yeah, so it's not like, everyone just thinks it's like willy-nilly, like, hey, I got a wife at home. Do you want to come be my second wife? That's not, obviously not how it happened.
If she said yes, then they could go ahead and plan the marriage ceremony. Regarding courtship of plural wives, Brittany Nash wrote that many women who became plural wives experienced little to no courtship, which appealed to Victorian sensitivities about the appropriate behavior of married men. Mary Farrell remembered that
married men didn't do any courting of their plural wives. Why, we would have thought it dishonorable for a mature married man to go sparking around like a young man. They just came and asked us, and if we wanted them, we agreed.
Dang, so they were just like straight up, there's like, hey, you got money, you got the reputation. They're like, this is like the peak gentleman asking me to marry him. He's not some silly boy running around. Yeah, so it's actually kind of a prestigious thing for some women. That's crazy. That's a wild thing I never thought about.
How about marrying?
I'd have to finish.
This is one of the greatest movies/plays of all time.
But yours?
Of course, experiences varied, but researcher Catherine Danes acknowledged that most stories confirm this kind of restraint when courting plural wives. Now, for most of my life, I've thought that polygamy was not inherently fair to women and that monogamy was inherently fair to women. But the reality is that in the 19th century, to a degree, both polygamy and monogamy were unfair to women, though perhaps in different ways.
I mean, life back then was unfair to women, right? They couldn't vote. Like, this was, which, shout out Utah, one of the first states to approve suffrage, and then have to repeal it and then give it back later. But hey, Utah was leading the way there. Dude, that's like saying getting a job was unfair to black men in the South. It's like, what? Like, yeah, obviously, that's pretty.
In marriage and in society at large, women were considered subordinate to men. Getting divorced in the United States was relatively difficult, especially if initiated by a woman. But in polygamous Utah, the opposite was true. Getting an ecclesiastical divorce was relatively easy, especially if initiated by a woman. In my research, I happened upon an official journal entry that sheds some light on what Brigham Young thought about divorce. He liked a woman to live with her husband as long as she could bear with him, and if her life became too burdensome, then leave and get a divorce. In one 1861 speech, he went so far as to say that when a woman becomes alienated in her feelings and affections for her husband, it is then his duty to give her a bill of divorcement and set her free. George Q. Cannon wrote in 1879 that the liberty upon this point of divorce rests with the woman, and as regards a separation, if her position should become irksome or
dang, they were pretty progressive with the marriage arrangements. The old church was back in the day.
Distasteful to her even, and she should desire a separation, not only is the man bound to respect it, but he is bound also to give her and her offspring a proportionate share of his whole property. Divorce was still generally discouraged, and unhappy marriages certainly still existed, but in 1870, Utah likely had the highest divorce rate in the country.
That's a crazy stat.
Young, Wilford Woodruff, and Joseph F. Smith all had wives who divorced them.
Dang, Wilford, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh my God, 5 later. That's it. Again, if you just take one, your hit rate could go up by quite a bit. I don't know why everybody need more than one wife.
Polygamy in Utah wasn't butterflies and rainbows. It was understandably heart-wrenching for a lot of people, and mistakes were certainly made. But as researcher Richard Van Wagner pointed out, contrary to popular 19th century notions about polygamy, the Mormon harem, dominated by lascivious males with hyperactive libidos, did not exist. The image of unlimited lust was largely the creation of Gentile travelers to Salt Lake City, more interested in titillating audiences back home than in accurately portraying plural marriage. And unfortunately, that same representation of polygamy is...
That's crazy. That's exactly what's happening. It's like, and you can't, no one is going to listen to you long enough to understand that principle. No one's going to listen to you long enough for you to explain that this is what it was. This is what it's just like. It's going to be. This is exactly how people are going to look back on political cartoons of today's time or today's world. It's like there's no understanding what was going through their mind. But that's what's sad about today's time. Today's the divisiveness and the backbiting and just the unproductive conversation. If someone were to bring polygamy up and I try to go through these ideas and these facts, they don't care. It's, yeah, whatever. Then they'll just move on to the next. Joseph Smith was a scam artist and he's a treasure hunter and he ruined all this, blah, 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 blah. And they're just going to go, oh, blacks didn't get the priesthood, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's so hard to have, like, this, even in this guy's comments. Let's see what some of these comments are. We can call over history all we want, but often it's left out scholarly literature on trafficking. There are scholars who are completely dedicated to studying contemporary and throwing my science for criminal justice. Oh, that's actually a productive comment. This guy's saying basically that I've yet to see them mention this polygamy in their work, not even once. It's not even on their radar. Just give me extra. So, actually, both of his comments are pretty good. Another extremely common Keystone W. Yes, he does amazing research. Everything looks good. His videos are top tier. And I'm glad because, like, this is what we need. We need more videos that kind of break this down. There's always going to be the subreddit ex-Mormon that's going to come and tear it down and say what they want to say and have their ugly graphics, man. Whatever this thing is right here, whatever this picture is with the upside down Angel Moroni and the ugly, whatever that is, that ain't it, bro. Keystone's videos with David Snell's videos way better than that. So that's crazy to me. But me coming up as a member, that's like a lot of stuff I didn't know. Those are great things to bring to light for the rest of us that are short on time and short on attention span. That's my problem, dude. I got no attention span for a lot of this stuff, and the research this guy does. Maybe if I put my heart to it, but man, his videos are on point. Everyone go subscribe to Keystone on YouTube, David Snell, Keystone LDS on Instagram, Keystone LDS on Facebook. Videos are top tier. Let's see how long we've been running for. We got another half hour. Let's see what else. What else can we? Oh, there's a couple more that I want to look at. Let's see. But I don't think I have them on here for some reason. Alright, sorry JJ, I never react to your thing, but it looks like you're gone. Thanks for joining. The go where fun lives. Let's see. Nice. Let's see, what's his most recent? We'll go check out. Hello. What's his most like? Does he still make videos? Yeah, 9 days ago. Latter-day Saint controversy. Do Mormons still believe? Oh, it's a podcast now. Let's see what his most popular videos are. The Temple General Conference. Yeah. Damn, his videos are all kind of long. I'll do Hello Saints another time. Here.
Has the Mormon
Let's see what this is. 60 seconds, 2,000 subscribers. Okay, let's see what this one. Let's see what this one's all about. This is a 60-second video.
Has the Mormon priesthood been used to abuse?
Joseph Smith used the holy name and priesthood of God to
Careful, estimates put the number between 30 and 40.
compel 40 women and their families to either support or cover up his many illicit and illegal affairs with members of his own church.
We are quoting from the LDS Church essay that says, the rumors prompted members and leaders to issue carefully worded denials that denounced spiritual wifery and polygamy, but they were silent about what Joseph Smith and others saw as divinely mandated celestial plural marriage. The statements emphasized that the church practiced no marital law other than monogamy, while implicitly leaving open the possibility that individuals, under direction of God's living prophet, might do so.
So this is a carefully crafted message from the Mormon Church, otherwise known as a lie.
I don't even know. I don't know what that was all about. That's crazy. Let's see. The band. And I'm gonna do this one. So this is something that's been making the rounds. I've seen a lot of people react to this one and just discuss it. This is called, the title of the YouTube video is Banned Mormon Cartoon Extended Version. And this is, I guess, the breakdown of part 1, the beliefs of Mormonism.
Regardless of its Christian veneer, the basic tenets of Mormonism are in direct conflict with biblical Christianity. The following piece of animation, based directly on actual Mormon publications, highlights these major doctrinal differences.
Mormonism teaches that trillions of planets scattered throughout the cosmos are ruled by countless gods.
Do you know what's crazy about this is Cardin Ellis from Ward Radio was talking about the background of this film. It was a bunch of Christian pastors that came together and funded this effort to tear down the church, and they contracted some animators who apparently were Jewish, and that they didn't give them like the full script. They just said what needed to be animated and got animations for everything, and they had no idea. And they posted a statement later saying like, "Hey, we had no idea this is what this was. We have no ill will towards the members of the church, blah, blah, blah." So interesting. Interesting that they wouldn't outright say what they were saying, that they had to go through some covert channels to be able to get animation done for this and then publish it.
We're human like us. They say that long ago on one of these planets...
Bro, I like the superhero. The superhero mother god.
To an unidentified god and one of his goddess wives, a spirit child named Elohim was conceived. This spirit child was later...
Oh, so this is God's parents. This is the God we believe in, his parents. That's right. I remember now.
Born to human parents who gave him a physical body. Through obedience to Mormon teaching and death and resurrection, he proved himself worthy and was elevated to godhood as his
so he's saying
father before him. Mormons believe that Elohim is their heavenly father and that he lived.
Oh, so he's saying that Elohim went through the same process that Jesus went through.
With his many goddess wives on a planet near a mysterious star called Kolob.
Bro, that's crazy. I believe now. I believe that this is the one true church.
Here, the God of Mormonism and his wives, through endless celestial sex, produced billions of spirit children to decide their destiny.
Bro, celestial sex, that's crazy.
The head of the Mormon gods called a great heavenly council meeting. Both of Elohim's eldest sons were there, Lucifer and his brother Jesus. A plan was presented to build planet Earth, where the spirit children would be.
W magic shooting out the finger to the portal. What is this, dude? Could you imagine animating this without any idea of what is being said? Like, what kind of conversations were had when they were animating this?
Sent to take on mortal bodies and learn good from evil. Lucifer stood and made his bid for becoming.
So right there they said, hey, yeah, we just need an animation of Adam and Eve in this window well.
Savior of this new world. Wanting the glory for himself, he planned to force everyone to become gods. Opposing the idea, the Mormon Jesus suggested giving man his freedom of choice, as on other planets. The vote that followed approved the proposal of the Mormon Jesus, who would become savior of the planet Earth. Enraged, Lucifer cunningly convinced 1/3.
So this is like if you ask someone who was in CTR 5, the plan of salvation.
The spirits destined for Earth to fight with him in revolt. Thus, Lucifer became the devil and his followers the demons. Sent to this world, they would forever be denied bodies of flesh and bone. Those who remained neutral in the battle were cursed to be born with black skin. This is the Mormon explanation for the Negro race. The spirits that fought most valiantly against Lucifer would be born
pale white, blonde hair, blue. They got great genes, as American Eagle would say.
Into Mormon families on planet Earth.
Oh, bro, this whole time I haven't even been on the right thing. Duh.
These would be the lighter-skinned people, or white and delightsome, as the Book of Mormon describes them. Early Mormon prophets taught that
whoever's in chat didn't tell me that I was showing the wrong freaking scene.
Elohim and one of his goddess wives came to Earth as Adam and Eve to start the human race. Thousands of years later, Elohim, in human form once again, journeyed to Earth from the starbase Kolob, this time to have sex with
to get with Mary.
The Virgin Mary.
Not that we don't believe in Immaculate Conception.
Right? In order to provide Jesus with a physical body.
The knock on the door? What the?
After Jesus Christ grew to manhood, he took at least 3 wives, Mary, Martha, and Mary Magdalene.
What? I have never heard that in my entire life.
Through these
the doctrine of the church must have changed dramatically since when this was created.
Wives, the Mormon Jesus, for whom Joseph Smith claimed.
Again, a sole focus in this is polygamy. It's like they just can't get over it.
In direct descent, supposedly fathered a number of children before he was crucified. According to the Book of Mormon, after his resurrection, Jesus came to the Americas to preach to the Indians, who the Mormons believe are really Israelites. Thus, the Jesus of Mormonism established his church in the Americas as he had in Palestine.
Dang, this is way better than the cartoons I grew up with for the church. Just kidding, nothing beats the Stripling Warriors Book of Mormon story.
By the year 421 AD, the dark-skinned Indian Israelites, known as Lamanites, had destroyed all of the white Nephites in a number of great battles. The Nephites' records were supposedly written on golden plates and buried by Moroni, the last living Nephite in the hill Cumorah. 1,400 years later, a young treasure seeker named Joseph Smith, who was known for his tall tales, claimed to have uncovered these same gold plates near his home in upstate New York. He is now honored by Mormons as a prophet because he claimed to have had visions from the spirit world in which he was commanded to organize the Mormon Church, because all Christian creeds were an abomination. It was
sounds good to me.
Joseph Smith who originated most of these peculiar doctrines which millions today believe to be true.
I mean, 2 of those 3 books that are there. We don't believe that Joseph Smith wrote the Book of Mormon. Duh. Mormon did. That's why it's the Book of Mormon.
By maintaining a rigid code of financial and moral requirements and through performing secret temple rituals.
Oh no! By being good people and having good financial background and saving money and paying tithing and not doing drugs or such bad people. Oh no.
Rituals for themselves and the dead, the Latter-day Saints hope to prove their worthiness and thus become gods.
Oh, see, and that's when they're hitting on the works versus oh, rough stream. They're hitting on the whole works versus what's it? By your works you'll be safe, right? A lot of Christian churches don't teach that your works are necessary. It's just like the grace of God, everyone's saved. But that's such a weird argument because it's like, okay, so I'm saved by my works, but I can't just go out and do whatever I want, because then I'm not showing that I'm truly declaring Christ as my Savior. But if I can't show that I'm declaring Christ as my Savior, then I'm not declaring Christ as my Savior. So if by my works I'm not declaring my faith in Christ, then it's like just this by your works. Like, dude, that's what another thing that like we are all saved by Christ. Don't get me wrong, we're all saved. But I also do believe that there is some work that needs to be done on behalf of yourself as a person. You do have to be a good person moving forward. You can't just, oh, well, Christ saved me, I'm ready to go. But then everyone believes in baptism too. It's just like this round circle that is everyone just, it's just like anything else in the world. Is they all have this circular way of thinking that always comes back to a head scratching me where I'm like, what do you, so you're mad at me because I think that you do have to do some work in order to accept the Savior truly and the Savior sacrifice. Sue me if I believe that you do have to do something to be a good person. You can't just say I'm a good person. Actions speak louder than words and all that.
The Mormons teach that everyone must stand at the final judgment before Joseph Smith, the Mormon Jesus, and Elohim. Those
Joseph Smith. No other prophet pre or post restoration will stand on that board. Just Joe. Just good old Joe, who was killed for his beliefs. He's the only one who's supposed to go up there.
Mormons who were sealed in the eternal marriage ceremony expect to become polygamous gods in the celestial kingdom, rule over other planets, and spawn new families throughout eternity.
Now, I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of teaching as I grew up of becoming gods and having your own world to rule over in the next life. And now as an adult, I can see that all of that really just meant that everything in this life we're striving to be like who? Like Jesus. And that by default we are striving to be like our Heavenly Father. We will live with Him once again. We will return to Him once again. That's as far as I believe. I don't know a single member of the church, faithful member of the church, that truly is doing everything here on earth and everything within the church and within the temple because they believe that they will rule over a whole new galaxy and be a what did they say? Polygamist, heavenly polygamous beings that just gets to go and have this celestial sex and repopulate whatever galaxy you're getting sent off to, right next door to Kolob and Kolob 2.0, Kolob 3.0. Like, it just makes no sense. And so it's crazy that they just are going to say, oh yeah, all Mormons believe all these infantile things, and that's how it's always been, and that's how it always will be. So stay far away from the Mormon church, because they're crazy, and they don't believe in Christ. They believe in Elohim, Christ, God, polygamous God, Elohim. It's just like, dude, come on. It's just all such bad faith. And I hope that, like, more people are willing to have good faith conversations. I've met a ton. I know so many good people who are willing to sit down, and they know me before knowing me as a Mormon, as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And they know my character from before that. And guess what? Them finding out that I'm a member of the church doesn't really change the way they feel about me. That's what's crazy. It's like they all, hey, I might not agree with what Kingston does, but hey, Kingston can be a good dude. They'll also say I'm probably mostly an idiot most of the time, and I talk too much, and I can be pretty annoying. But most of them will say, like, hey, if Kingston had my back, Kingston would have my back. So that's all I aim for, right? And that's what I think most members of the church aim for. They aim to be good people, and they aim to follow Christ. And yes, on the way, they keep the law of chastity, they keep the word of wisdom, and they keep all the other laws of God. And guess what? That in turn makes them decent people. Decent, kind people. And you don't find very many people who have negative things to say about the members of the church they know. They might have a ton to say negative about Joseph Smith, a ton to say negative about Brigham Young, and a ton to say negative about Joe Schmo and everybody else over here. And I will also admit that there are a lot of idiots within the church. I have been an idiot within the church sometimes, but that's, we're fallible people. We make mistakes. So it's like, dude, this bad faith. The fact that this thing from, who knows? Let's see if we can figure out when this thing was created. This thing was created. The Banned Mormon Cartoon. It says, from our film, The Secret World of Mormonism. Let's see if we can find this. Oh, this is on Disney Plus. Oh no. Negatively refers to the Secret World of Mormonism, 2003. Yes, this is from something from 2003. There's a 4.2 out of 10 rating on whatever this is. Lillian Laverne. But this is like self-Mormon anthropological. Oh, that's what's from. It's from the God Makers. That's what this is really from. The God Makers. Again, 5 out of 10 though. It's not like it's this great thing that everyone it just changed the world. Anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that. But don't go watch it. You don't gotta watch that. Watch it again for comedic value. It's nothing interesting. But I thought it was funny. A lot of guys are reacting to it now. Well, I don't know who my concurrent viewer is, but I'm gonna call it a night. Thanks for everyone who joined 12 separate views. So there's someone out there watching. Who knows if I'll be able to cut anything from this. I'm pretty tired. And yeah, I probably won't do any more blind reacts. I gotta actually watch something first and then come back and talk about it, because sometimes I'm in over my head when I watch some things, or even that 2-hour video that I was recommended today. Last recommendation I take from that lady. But thanks for everyone who joined. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Hopefully I'll be getting on as frequently as possible. But you know what it is. Appreciate ya. Deuces.